So let me begin. This is meant to be an open discussion, and when I suggest that I'm interested in hearing your ideas, it's because I'm interested in hearing your ideas. Right before we all got here, I was talking to Dai Dai and Lukpi, and I want to ask an opening question. But before I ask the opening question, I want to suggest a question which is going to be throughout our discussion, and we'll talk about at the end. And that is, what does this exercise, how does it relate to our project? How does it relate to our thoughts on producing and performing Mamma Mia in the coming months? And you know, I would suggest that somehow it is, but I want you all to think about that. The first question, and again, maybe since they were the first online, either Dai Dai or Lukpi, the video was made in the early 1990s on a TV show called MTV Unplugged, which I think maybe is still on the air. It used to be a regular thing, like every week or something, and I think they still produce specials. So my opening question is, what opportunities does the format of MTV Unplugged give to a band or give to musicians? What opportunities it's given, and also what challenges does it present to a group of musicians?
First off, the MTV Unplugged, the Unplugged means like it's like an acoustic session without editing. So unlike other live performances where there's like other type of like electronic or not acoustic instruments, there's like less way to hide mistakes, and due to the nature of how the MTV Unplugged is set up as like a like a kind of like close proximity kind of on a big stage show, that's kind of like a layer of intimacy between the audience and the performancer.
Okay, good. If I were to categorize Dai Dai's comments, maybe he's talking about the positives or the opportunity it gives. Lukpi, what are the challenges, or what makes the whole format so interesting?
Well, the challenges, so like Dai said, is unedited, it's acoustic. So if you make a mistake, it's really easy to catch. But the thing with acoustic and something that's natural, it's pure, it's something that sounds good. And the fact that you know that it's real, it makes the show better.
And what if your band normally consists of acoustic guitars and brush drums and acoustic piano, it wouldn't seem so difficult to put, or it wouldn't be so difficult to transition to the MTV Unplugged format. But Nirvana definitely was not that. Nirvana wasn't a guy sitting on a stool with an acoustic guitar, and there's even a woman playing the cello in the video, and I think it's cello in the video. So what do they have to do to even begin to think about and develop a performance on MTV Unplugged? What was the challenge there? Or anybody?
Well, if it's like the second part of the song, they kind of have to find a way to give the same energy or different energy, but kind of have to be the one that they plan on.
Oh, okay. So did the video that you watch have energy?
Yes.
And what why do you, I mean, I don't know if you say yes just because you think that's the answer. My guess is that you really do say yes, but what makes you say that? Where did you see energy? How did you sense energy? you know, and energy literally is what happens when you plug an amplifier into the wall. You're getting energy from the electricity. But there was none of that in this song and none of that in the video. So where did the energy come from?
So for me, at the back half of the song, the energy came from the voice. Since in other concerts and stuff where it's not acoustic, the energy comes from the rhythm of the drums and the guitars that are plugged in and stuff. But since they are limited to only acoustic, the voice is really what carries and bring the energy out in the show, because the instruments are playing low and soft. And if the voice is up there, the voice gains attention from the audience, and the audience is just, they can hear the whole band, but the most important one is the singer. It brings out the energy, maybe a different type of energy than other concerts, but it's an energy that people can relate to.
Okay. And one thing that struck me as I watched the video, and I've watched it so many times, is that actually it starts out, you know, like an acoustic number, and it gets even softer. I think about the 2.5 minute or 3 minute mark, he's almost singing a little bit a cappella. I think maybe he's just playing his guitar just a little bit, but it gets really, really quiet. So it begins kind of quiet. The middle part is really quiet, and then there's this explosion, you might say, but not with any electricity. Can some of the someone other than Dai Dai and Lukpi chime in and give some thoughts on that? How do you recognize, or how do you perceive energy in that performance?
I think like also leading on from what like Luke P said about the energy of the audience, I think the audience kind of like reflects the energy of whoever is performing. So like however he's trying to convey his message through his voice, the audience is like seeing it and like taking it in. So then like their reaction of being silent is also a reflection of the energy from the performer. And I think like because during that time, not everyone was like focused on their phones as much. So everyone was focused on the actual performance and emotions itself, rather than like, oh, taking an Instagram story that they're there. So like everyone was appreciating the energy that was being like given out to them. And I think it's like a special thing to happen in like a performance.
It's quite some. I read something just this morning as I keep thinking about this, and it's something which I knew in the back of my head, but I hadn't thought about until this morning. YouTube did not exist. This is a video that we're watching on YouTube. You could have, if you could go back in time and sit in that audience and chat with either the band or the audience and say the word YouTube, they would have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Literally nothing. They have no idea what you're talking about. That's partially what makes, you know, it's one of the things that makes it so remarkable, I think. Another thing which TM, you said, which I thought was interesting, everything you said was interesting, but someone once said something to the effect of the importance of the silence between even the notes in music, that the silence is of equal importance to the sound. I used to work with a music teacher at a school many years ago, and he would always begin the performance with, it would be like 10 musicians or 12 musicians, and he would always insist on silence at the beginning. Maybe all music teachers do that. You don't just sort of fall into the sound or start whenever you feel like starting, but he always insisted on absolute silence at the beginning of the song, and so that the notes, the melody, the guitar or the drums or something sort of just cuts into that and presents that to whoever is listening. So let me ask an important question, which has again been on my mind for quite some time, and that is, did it take courage for Kurt Cobain to sing the way he sang, particularly in the second half of that song? Did we see courage I see some nodding of the head. Chinmay, did you hear that question? Thank.
Sorry, no, I didn't. My bad. Sorry.
I was just asking in the second half, particularly the second half of the song, the Kurt Cobain changes his voice.
Yeah.
And the question is, did it take courage for him to sing that way?
I think the fact that when they mentioned that it was their favorite band as well, I feel like the way he expressed his emotion throughout the song, I think yes, he had a lot of courage to sing the way he did. And yeah, I think that he had a lot of courage to sing the way he did, because I think it surprised me just as much as the audience was surprised. So yeah.
Can others add to that? Agree, add to it, disagree, comment? Does it take courage to do what he did?
I'll add to that.
Okay.
Feel like it does purely because of the setting. If it was a like a big stage or something, it would be easier to like shout out, scream out, whatever, right? But because it is like an intimate sort of place and feeling because of the MTV Unplugged thing, it takes quite a bit of courage to speak that much volume. You would be like, I would be scared to do it because it's a small room. What are you like kind of expecting something soft and quiet? And then he just goes out and does a complete opposite, which takes a lot of courage.
Okay. Other comments? Thank you. Any other comments?
I would like to add to that.
Okay.
I think it's like to connect to like the thing with the stage and MTV. Like in the stage, you're there to present, right? You present your song. But in this area in MTV, what's it called again? Acoustic or what's that? Unplugged. Yeah, my bad. In MTV Unplugged, it's more like you're trying to connect with the audience to a certain level. So I think that he has courage in a way of putting himself out there, like in the same level as the audience, and then like elevating those emotions that he's trying to like present to the audience also. So
Interesting. There's something, if someone asked me, would it take courage for me to get up on a stage in front of 10,000 people with an electric guitar and go like this? That to me is not courage. I mean, it may be wonderful or maybe terrible, but it's not courage. But there's something about, I think, the fact that it's a human voice that is, as Chokchai just said, something that the audience too possesses. So it's not an electric guitar, which only he would have to throw out there, but everyone watching in the audience had a voice, could speak up if they so chose, but he rises above all of that with I think you could call naked emotion. And it's also, I think, it's not screaming. He's not screaming. He's singing. I mean, there's a tune. There's a melody. There are words. So I think that also contributes to the power of it. And I asked specifically earlier when I suggested this discussion, do you believe that he means the words that he's singing? And if so, how do you know that? Anybody?
Tying it back to like the courage part, him taking this song, like it wasn't a song from him, but it was someone else's song, and putting like his own, I don't know, style into it or whatever he meant into it. It takes courage to do that. and he does mean what he sings, because to get to that point of like using like a very different tone, and also what is it, like the pain in his like raspy voice, put it into it, it kind of like makes it sound very real, and we kind of get like what he's trying to convey through his voice. But then also not just his voice, his like emotion in his face and his eyes in the second part, when he was like making it all his own style, it really like brought it out that he was meaning what he actually sang. And also it does take a lot of courage to put yourself into a song.
Okay, good. I mean, interesting and good. Okay. Anybody else on that same point about courage? Dai, you're nodding your head.
Mr. Robert,
Yes,
I
go ahead.
wouldn't. I mean, yes, I do agree with the courage aspect of it, but I think that Kurt Cobain himself didn't necessarily think that what he did was courageable. I don't know. I don't think that he saw it as courage. I felt like, because while I was watching the performance, Thomas and his facial expressions, and especially his eyes, at one point during the performance, he had a pause and his eyes just widened up, and his piercing blue eyes just looked into complete space. And I feel like that was when he really connected with the song he was singing. And I don't know, I don't think that was courage. I felt like that was just realness, and like literally like pain. Like I don't think it was courage, but I don't know the word. I don't know. But I guess other people, like the audience, would say that it was courage, but he would probably say that he just connected with the song, if that makes sense. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about so many situations where, a house is burning and someone runs into the house to save somebody. And then that person gets medals and honors and everything. And almost always the person says, like, what else was I supposed to do? I'm not different from anybody else. If I saw a house burning and I ran in to save somebody. So maybe from the outside, we may think of it as courage. But the person who's courageous, or the person we think is courageous, maybe it's who they are, or how they express themselves. He was a special and also tragic human being, just dripping with talent and charisma and maybe courage. I don't know what it was, but mixed in with that was, despair and depression, and notably drug abuse, and ultimately the end of his life. I was like less than a year after the video, he was no longer alive.
Oh,
Go ahead.
oh yeah. Like I was gonna add, like, well, I think one thing that made it like stand out, like the song I was singing, was how much power he had. I felt like because his whole career, like his whole music and Nirvana in general, it's their songs, the message they convey, it really emphasizes on, the realness, the struggle, like the despair that he has felt. Like even shortly after the MTV, he had taken his own life, right? So that was like at his peak. I'm pretty sure that was like where it hit the hardest for Kurt Cobain. And with those emotions, I think that he let out a really powerful song when he was singing.
I'm glad you said that. Let me jump to my next point, my next question. That is the audience's reaction. And I certainly think the audience's reaction is in two parts. The one part is when the song ends. I mean, literally the last note of the song. So I'll in a second I'll ask someone to sort of describe their reaction or your reaction to their reaction, and then he goes out into this very intimate small audience and begins to. It looks like he's signing a couple autographs, and then I was just blown away by the change in the audience when he was standing there, and they were what's the. Someone describe that. So jump in, TM. Yes, I see you nodding. What's the audience reaction when the song ends, and what's the audience's reaction a couple minutes later when he's standing there among them signing autographs?
I mean, throughout the whole performance, they were like really like quiet, and I guess it's just like it could either be two ways. It could be out of like respect for the performer, or they were like in awe of what was happening, which I think is a mix of both, because what he was doing was really like different from like the original song itself and putting himself in. And then also at the end, they were clapping for him. Yay. And then once he goes and like to a small group and signed autograph, everyone was just like dead silent. And like, I thought it was weird because like for me growing up in like this generation, we all will hear like screaming, everyone fighting just to like get close to the artist. And then for like this video, everyone was just like just sitting and watching actually. And then I think it like comes out as the audience was just, I don't know, appreciating his existence in front of them, and then like taking everything in, like what was there, because he performed a song putting his like emotions and feelings into it, and then everyone was shocked from that, but then also from him like just walking around getting close to them, it can give people chills, and they were just like appreciating the moment that they had. And I think that's why it was just like really quiet.
Wow. And you used the phrase appreciating his existence, which is whatever it is, 3 or 4 words. Oh, the irony to a man taking his life. I mean, how many times in our own lives do we have people appreciating our existence? And yeah, there's a. I think you probably. I mean, it's whatever 25 years ago. The people in the audience are like, 100 years old. But Petch, that's okay. Petch is okay. He just sent the message. But at the time they may not even known why they were silent, but it looks like reverence. It looks like awe. So there's the guy on the stage, and I guess the normal reaction or the regular reaction is to clap and scream and yell, but then he steps forward. Yeah. Other comments?
I would like to add on Thomas, like, yeah, exactly. I was writing notes while I was watching the performance, and I wrote like, you could literally feel the respect for Kurt from the audience with their silence. And I also wrote that his performance would make you shut up and listen. Now I said this because I legit did it. I legit, like, when he started like getting like really into it, I just stopped everything and I listened. And I don't know. I don't understand. I think that I understand. I don't think that he understood how much power he had, I guess. And also I read somewhere that Kurt thought that the performance was really bad because the audience wasn't cheering as much and wasn't clapping as much, which is very ironic because this concert considered to be one of the like best and like most legendary of like all time. So yeah, it's just, I don't know.
I think
really sad, but yeah.
I think, and I don't know the answer to this, but I think the adoration and love from the audience or any of his audiences, it either meant the world to him, which is possible, or it's also possible that it meant absolutely nothing to him. It's easy for us to say, why in the world would someone end their life when they were loved by so many people? Maybe it meant nothing to him. I don't know. Maybe he was looking for something else, something other than, you know, clapping. I don't know. See, at the end of his life, or his life, not just the end of his life, but those 2, 3, 4, 5 years was also consumed with very dangerous drugs. And, you know, when people do that, there's not, they have a clouded view of life and death. It doesn't have the same meaning to them as it would be to anybody else. So maybe the simplest answer as to why he ended his life is it's heroin and drugs. I mean, it messed him up, messed up his brain. It changes the chemistry of your brain. A couple more questions, but let me ask the group that what do we learn from this as we you know, as we're in our whatever 8th month of trying to put together Mamma Mia, and maybe we thought that the 8th month will be the last month, but it's not the last month. We at least have a few more months until that moment when we get up on stage. What does any of this discussion have to do with us and what we're trying to do?
It could be in a way how Kurt Cobain was really into his music while before. We could use that, and how he connected with the audience as well, from beginning to end during his whole performance. I think that we could put that into consideration.
Okay. Others? Hi.
In our practices, especially with like the 3 dads, whatever you talked about, you talked a lot about fear, especially with Tony, and I guess you just want us to kind of know what courage is, something like that. Kind of like trying to show us how it could be if we put our heart and soul into it, and kind of don't let fear stop us from doing the best we can.
I believe that, Dai. There's something very peculiar about acting. I think about a lot of our group. I think about Tanwa, for example. You know, or his character expressing his love for Sophie. And, you know, I believe that Tanwa understands the script. And he also, I believe that he understands, you know, love and affection and all those sorts of things. But, you know, but it doesn't always come out, or doesn't come out. And that's not me picking on Tanwa, because he's made a lot of progress. And I could pick on all of you. But there's something about honesty, there's something about maybe courage, there's something about letting it out, there's something about fear. Yeah. Others, you know, this ultimately is our most important question. What does this have to do with, what is this discussion, and what is, you know, watching the video have to do with us? What do we get from it? What do we take from it?
I feel like you gave this video because it's could be an example of how a show would turn out. As a musician, when you play alone in your room, you play anything and you will be in the zone. In the zone means you're focused, you're in the music. But when you're playing live or with someone else, you rarely get into that mental state because, you know, you're not focused. You have to look at everyone else. But I feel like in that performance, Kurt Cobain wasn't expressing the song for everyone. He was in the zone. He was focused on it. He was doing it to himself. And since he believed in it, the audience believed in it. So if on Mamma Mia, we can just go up on stage and chill and be ourselves, be what we were during practice, then we believe in it and the audience believe in the character.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. You said it better than I did. That's what the Tanwa example, that's what I was trying to say. If he were in the zone, as you say, and like I struggle to sort of explain to in this example him how you say I love you to Sophie, and then I think like why am I even trying to explain that? Because I mean he knows. But it's sort of holding it back, or not being honest, or not being protective of, I guess, of himself. Or do you know who's you also use the word who's chill? I think you said chill. Do you use the word chill? There's this one of you who's so chill up on the stage. Who's the chill person up on stage? There's one of you. Who is it?
Blawan?
No, someone here.
Oh, someone here.
Yes.
Sun.
Well, Sun's not on stage. Sun's in the Chimai is chill. For the life of me, I'll never get over this. When we ran through the whole show and he was up on stage. I can't remember what the scene number is, but he was the one where he does the push-ups and everything. He wasn't acting, and that's fine. It's actually better than fine. I mean, he was like being himself, but doing what the script called for him to do. But he wasn't like this weird imaginative character. When we're 5 years old and we're in a little play and we're told to be the puppy or be the tree or something, we have to imagine what the tree would be. This wasn't him doing anything other than sort of relaxing and doing what I said for him to do, or what Dr. Pim said for him to do, or what you guys said for him to do. And that's just like the coolest thing ever. Not the same as Kurt Cobain singing the song, but in that way. And it's that's my praise of him in that moment. I could say that about any of you. The other thing I would add to what a couple of you already said is for us to think about as we do this is this change in volume. The roller coaster of sound and emotion. If you just get up on stage, our musical is probably about 2 hours, and you just sort of scream out everything from beginning to the end, it has no impact. It's when you get quiet, when moments call for being quiet, and then when the moment calls for being louder or more emotional or less emotional or bursting out into song, that's what keeps the audience into it. It's got to vary. You've got to pierce the quiet, pierce the silence, understand your part. And actually, everything I just said in the past 30 seconds was about what happens on stage. The musicians probably would say exactly the same thing. If it's just like the same sound from beginning to end, it's not much of a show. It's not much of a musical performance. It's not much of acting up on stage. It's got to be real. It's got to be Look P in the zone. Anybody else I want to add to that before I get to my final question? Anybody else like to add to that as far as what we take from what we're talking about and watching the video and bestow it upon ourselves as we do this?
Yeah, I think talking about like being ourselves on stage, like with like being an ensemble and dancing, there's a difference when you like dance alone in a room, dancing with people on stage. And I think like different people feel different ways in those two situations, but like you could either be like super yourself and do like whatever you want when you're in a room alone, and then you get into like the feeling, the groove, the mood, and then once you're on stage, it could be like you're so worried about everyone else around you that you forget that to be yourself and you're just trying to get the moves right. And I think those are like two different things. And I think for us to be able to put ourselves on stage, we have to be comfortable and like used to what we have. So then I think we need like a lot more practices together, and also everyone needs to kind of like understand their role and their impact in the performance itself, so that like we know what to do to make it look like what we want it to.
Yeah, so good. I mean, you know a whole lot more about dancing than I do. I know a little bit about music, but when, you know, if you just jump to the end of the process and that's the ultimate performance, when it's good, it just looks so easy because everyone is sort of relaxed into their role because they understand it so well. So there's like this building of tension and difficulty in trying to learn what it is that you're supposed to be doing and worry about the person next to you. And then so often, again, when the final result is something wonderful, everyone sort of understands it. And then, you know, there's like nothing that can stop you, nothing that can get in the way, because it's just so much inside of you. And, you know, TM, you know dance, I don't know dance, but there's a, you know, it's like this, what are those things called? The waves that go through people. What's that called? What word am I trying to think of? Or your aura maybe? Anyway, but it just sort of extends to the whole group. It's not your little thing, it's the thing that we've created. And it just sort of makes sense. Let me ask the final question. I think in the line group I mentioned that something was ironic, and I think some of you know the answer to the question, and it's about his little story at the beginning. He tells the story of at the very beginning. He says that Leadbelly was his favorite artist, and then he turns to the band and said, "It's everybody's. It's all of our favorite artists, isn't it?" The band. The band sort of says yes. And then he tells a funny little story, true story, which must have happened just in the weeks before this performance, that the estate of Leadbelly died, I think in 1949 or something, that they contacted him and said, "We know you're fans of Leadbelly. We have his original guitar. We'll sell it to you for $500,000, Kurt Cobain." And Kurt Cobain sort of says in the video, in the performance, you know, he didn't have $500,000. He mentions David Geffen, who was his like manager or head of the record company. And he said, "David Geffen, will you please buy this guitar for $500,000, which would have been an outrageous amount." So, you know, and the poor, so we know of irony, and Kurt Cobain never would have known the irony. So what's the irony? Somebody?
It sold last year for $6 million.
Right.
It was his guitar in the show.
Right. So not just Kurt Cobain's guitar, but the actual guitar that he was holding when he told that story. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And everything that we've talked about in the past 45 minutes plays into the question of why someone would pay $6 million for that guitar, right? It's because it was Kurt Cobain. It was because he sang that song. It's because of who he was. Sadly, it's because his life ended. And there's, you know, those of you who've been in my English class, there's different kinds of irony. One type of irony is when the audience knows something that the performer doesn't know, and that's this kind of irony. He never would have known, never knew, and never could have imagined in telling that story about the $500,000 guitar, as he's telling the story, that this thing that he's holding on and playing, this incredible song, would go for $6 million to be the most expensive guitar ever in the history of the world. Ain't that amazing? Ain't that a story? Ain't that a story? Okay, guys, I thank you for your contributions. I thank you for your ideas and knowledge. We'll make a point to share this with our larger group. Congratulations to Congratulations to our grade 12 students who may or may not have, may or may not be high school graduates at this moment. Anyway, I'll see you guys in a couple days. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Wash your parents' hands. I don't know what that means. Take care of your puppies. Eat your vegetables. Get lots of sleep. And be good. Okay. 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 Bye, guys.
Bye bye.